I'm really excited to showcase you and your expertise. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So, as you said, I'm a real estate attorney, so an attorney who focuses just on real estate matters. I've been practicing law since 2011, and since 2013, I've focused only on real estate. I work for a boutique real estate firm called Rebelliotis Law, and we're based out of Park Ridge, but we handle the entire Chicagoland and suburban area. And when I say I focus on real estate, so it's buying, selling of properties. That would be residential, commercial, industrial, anything you can think of that's being bought or sold that would fall under the definition of real estate. I also represent landlords and tenants when they are negotiating leases for both commercial and residential. And my firm does focus on property tax appeals as well, which is us trying to lower your property taxes. I get that question all the time. Why do I need a lawyer to buy a house? What I always tell people is, first of all, buying a piece of property is the largest purchase you will probably ever make in your entire life. So you really need someone there who's going to advocate for you, because you don't know what you might get yourself into. And you want an attorney who specializes in real estate, because there are so many nuances. Just like if you had a criminal matter, you would want a criminal attorney. Attorneys are like other areas of law, and we do specialize through practice. So it's very important for you to have an attorney who understands real estate and all the nuances that come with it, which would include title issues and land issues and maybe zoning issues. I can't even count the amount of times that I've saved my clients from potentially getting into a bad deal. And I don't say that to be arrogant. I say it because it's my job. There are so many times where I've been at a closing and I represent the purchaser, and there would be a homeowners association involved, and there might be an outstanding balance due or a special assessment that wasn't paid. And the seller comes in with no intent of actually paying this at closing, but because I'm able to review that, I make sure the seller pays that so my client doesn't walk into this huge bill that wasn't even theirs. Or even earlier, prior, during attorney review, we might bump into a potential or contemplated special assessment. Well, if I'm aware of that, I'll make sure that the seller puts enough money aside and they are responsible to pay it, even if it's after my client purchases the property, because it was thought about when my client was under contract and prior to them purchasing the property. Another issue that's come up a lot would be zoning issues in Chicago. And this would, let's say someone is looking to purchase a building and they think this is a 3-unit building, so they'll get 3 rents and rent out 3 units. But the city of Chicago actually has it zoned as a 2-unit. So legally they can only rent out 2 units. So that would be another instance where you really need to know what you're getting into, and you need someone who understands real estate to be able to figure this stuff out and tell you the difference. And finally, for permitting issues, a lot of times, or citations with new construction or rehabbed properties, not all developers will choose to pull permits, and that's a diligence I do. And I explain to my clients that if the permits weren't pulled, your municipality, whether it be city of Chicago or wherever it is, they have the right to have you tear everything out and redo it. Wow. So that's something you would be getting yourself into. So
how has your job changed in today's environment?
Well, real estate has just changed completely. And I'm sure you can speak to that even better than I can on the front end, at least when it comes to, we have virtual showings. My clients aren't attending the inspections, whereas they did before. I've had clients go under contract for properties that they haven't seen, and we have to add an addendum that they will get to physically see it prior to closing and can terminate the contract if it doesn't fulfill their needs because they've only seen it virtually. Because the seller may not be comfortable with them entering the house. So there's a lot of moving pieces there. The most crazy part to me has been the quote unquote virtual closings, which are technically not 100% virtual, because in real estate, we need originals, and we call them wet signatures on mortgage documents and whatnot. So the buyers, are doing these curbside closings where they pull up to the title company and they're handed a giant stack of 100 to 200 pages in their car, and I'm on the phone with them, and we are going through every single piece of paper. And then the title company comes back out and notarizes it. And we're all trying to be as creative as possible. So, but it is definitely a whole new world out there. The biggest thing for me has been the conversations I've had to have with my clients, particularly when it relates to their finances. Typically, when you get to me, you've already gone through financing and whatnot. You know what you can afford. And I don't really ask clients about their finances. I'm more focused on the substance of the transaction. But because people's jobs, are so questionable right now, I will ask my clients, do you think there's a chance you're going to get furloughed? Do you think there's a chance you're going to get laid off? Because we need to add special addendums to the contract to protect them if that were to be the case. If they're unsure, there are certain people who are completely sure about their job, and that's fine and that's wonderful. But I've had to have these conversations, which I've never really had to have before with my clients, just to make sure they are properly protected. And that's been a huge part of it.
And another question that folks have is about property taxes, especially with taxes always going up. The question that I get is it worth it for me to appeal my taxes on my own, or should I use an attorney?
Well, I always say use an attorney, because first and foremost, we don't get paid unless we get a reduction. So it's in our best interest to get you the largest reduction possible. For instance, my firm on residential in Cook County, we charge 15%, 1/5 of each year's tax savings. So if we were to get you a reduction that would apply for 3 years, that would be 15 of each of those years. You have no reason not to appeal. You have nothing to lose, and send it to an attorney, because first of all, you're not a real estate expert. So why wouldn't you send it to someone who has a better chance of getting the reduction and can view your property differently than you can? So for instance, on residential appeals, we'll just talk about residential. There are very different types of appeals. So we might appeal it based on lack of uniformity, depending on the actual property, or we might get an appraisal if we feel that's right. We also may look at the purchase price, or whether or not there's been any vacancies in the property. So there's a lot of different avenues by which we will evaluate a property. So it definitely makes sense to appeal. There are also, and just so you know, technically you're not appealing your property taxes, you're appealing the value of your property, the assessed value. And by reducing the assessed value of your property, we're able to reduce your property taxes. So like I said, there's no reason not to. And our firm, at least, though properties are reassessed every 3 years, so your taxes go up a lot every 3 years, we do evaluate our files every single year just to see if there's any room for movement. Maybe we didn't get as big of an appeal or reduction as we would have liked the year before. So let's try it again the second year. So I always say appeal your property taxes. And as an aside, and having to do with COVID, so to kind of mix the last two questions, the property tax bills, the second installment in Cook County is typically due August 1st, but the treasurer has pushed that to October 1st in order to help people out with COVID, for, let's say.
There's a lot of speculation about what's going to happen with homes, with foreclosures, distressed properties. Can you share some insight about how you can help?
So back in 2012 and 13, we had a lot of distressed properties. So that's kind of the market I actually got into when I started practicing strictly real estate. So it's kind of a going back for me. And when we say distressed properties, we mean foreclosures, which are bank-owned properties, as well as short sales, which is the bank hasn't taken over yet, but they are behind. But they will be selling the property for less than what they owe on it. So the bank does need to approve it. So those are pretty much the property might be abandoned. So these are a whole other ballgame and require an extra level of diligence, because first of all, the bank, if they're the seller, they're not really going to give you much information. They kind of just give it to you as is. So it's all up to you. Whereas on a regular transaction, the seller does have a duty. So the big things we have to look at with this are sold or unpaid taxes to see if we need to redeem them or buy them back. Maybe second mortgages that exist or haven't been released. judgments or citations for city violations, which is extremely common, but that's like a whole other search you have to do. Any other title issues that might come up. So these are really big issues that come with distressed properties, and they really, really do require an extra level of diligence and an attorney who does real estate.
Wow. Do you see a lot of that happening in the future?
I'm hoping that it won't be as bad as it was. I don't know if I see it as much on residential. My fear is I see it a lot on commercial, just because I see it with my landlords who their tenants can't pay them. And then my landlord can't pay the bank. So though there's being great things done with some abatement and whatnot in order to help prevent this, I do think there will be some of these available. And, you know, some people who come to me with distressed properties, they're investors and they know that they're getting into something bad, but they just want to know exactly what they're getting into. Like another big thing is if you're buying a condo, there's always going to be back assessments, and the bank's responsible to pay for the last 6 months, but you're responsible for anything before that. And that could be thousands and thousands of dollars. Mm-hmm. And for an investor, they just want to know. But it might be a home buyer who found a good deal, but it still might be a good deal to them. And they might say, I want to pay those assessments because I think this is a great opportunity. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see how things go with the market. I do see things picking up though, a lot. So.
Oh yeah, it's been picking up.
Sure.
With, you know, like you said, during when this whole pandemic started back in March, things did come to a halt with the novelty of this COVID-19. But now that we've been into it several months, that definitely the Chicago real estate market is on the uptick.
It absolutely is. But I mean, there will be some distressed properties because, you know, like I said, a lot of people are losing jobs, losing businesses, they're closing, losing tenants. But, you know, hopefully that people will be able to snatch up these good deals and just keep the market going.
Absolutely. So Pamela, I think we're coming to an end now of our interview. And as I mentioned earlier, you and I, we work together on a couple of my clients. You've also helped me personally with some of my business ventures. And I really enjoyed working with you because you are very thorough and you take your time in explaining things to us. And I know my clients really enjoyed working with you.
Thank you so much for having me today.
And I will definitely repost all of your contact information in the caption.
Yes.
So Pamela, thanks for your time, and hopefully we can do some more business very soon.
I hope so too. Bye, everyone. Stay safe.